But what I might say in summary is that we have very high confidence in the projections that we're making. We have high confidence that we, the humans, are the primary cause of the warming, both because we use fossil fuels, but also because we clear land. About 20 to 30% of the greenhouse effect comes from the massive clearing of lands in Brazil, in Indonesia, and the other island nations in the region south of India and China. But that this warming process is unequivocal. These are strong words, and they're not words of mine. They're the words of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that released its reports in the spring of this year. But now let's go back to that 10,000-year period where we had such stability. So you've heard things like, well, it might be 2 degrees warmer. We might have this magic number of 450 parts per million of CO2. We're about 385 now and adding about 2 or 3 parts per million every year. So it's not very long to get to 450. But you can see even at the most optimistic condition, we're going to have a new blue zone in which we, the humans, are going to have to learn how to adapt and adjust to those temperatures. We have very little capability of projecting it. Others in the science community are suggesting it's more like 550 or maybe 3 degrees. And you may recall that the IPCC says that the projections for the coming century, by the 2100 period, we will have between 1.5 and 4.5 degrees of warming. So that's the band suggested by those 3 blocks. The prospects of that are that this effect will have long-term implications. It took us only about 200 years to do what we've done to the planet as humans, but it's going to take as much as 1,000 years for us to stabilize. And the reason for that is at these higher temperatures, 2 things are happening, for example, with sea level. Part of that is the heating of the ocean causes it to expand and it will rise due to the warmer waters of the ocean. But even more devastating to us are these glaciers that are just going to continue to melt year-round throughout the centuries to come and contribute to sea level rise. And as we suggested earlier, it might be something like a meter of sea level rise every 100 years. Could be more, could be a little less, but it's certainly going to be of those levels. A way of thinking about the climate problem is what I call the climate cathedral. It took 120 years to build Notre Dame, and we have the same problem. It's going to take several generations for us to grab a hold and fix the climate issue. The first thing we're going to have to do is, like building a cathedral, build a foundation. That foundation will have to come very soon in the years to come. And then as we solve the problem, it's by building the cathedral. Each period makes it more about what the cathedral is going to look like. In the same way, we're going to see how the solution to the climate problem will play out generation after generation. It will take us 100 or more years to solve the problem, and so our grandchildren are going to be as much involved in this as we are today. But the most important message is that we've got to build a foundation, for without that foundation of regulations and adjustments to the reduction of greenhouse gases, we're never going to solve the problem, and the planet will continue to get warm whether we like it or not. But I'd like to end by this picture. First of all, on the right, you'll see a little blue dot below the red arrow. That's our planet. It's still blue. It's the blue planet. It's in this particular picture taken from the Cassini satellite back in 2006. Shows that we're sitting out there far, far away from our brothers and sister planets. But we're changing the climate on that planet very rapidly, and some like to think that's an environmental problem. I'd like to suggest that it's way beyond that. It's no longer simply an environmental problem. It has serious implications for our economic security and certainly for the human well-being for the 6.5 billion people that live on the planet. And we're going to all have to work together to address this. We in the science community giving the best information we can as to what's happening. The political and policy community is going to have to take the action. And I'd like to argue again, it's like building a cathedral. We have to have the foundation, for without it the rest cannot follow. But every step thereafter can be an adjustment as we see how successful we are as we build the solution to the climate problem over the decades ahead.